The Ugly Duckling. Mother Duck sat proudly on her nest. She ruffled her feathers and gave a contented quack. It would soon be time for her eggs to hatch. Suddenly, there it was, the unmistakable tap, tap, tapping of beak against shell. Mother Duck climbed off the eggs and settled next to the nest to watch. Sure enough, cracks started to appear and tiny beaks broke through to breathe the fresh spring air for the first time. One by one, 5 tiny golden balls of fluff flapped clumsily on the riverbank, and Mother Duck gave a quack as if to say, "I'm here." Each happy little bird responded with a tiny meep. Brand new chicks can't quack yet. A single egg sat unbroken. It was slightly larger than the others and a bit lighter in colour. Mother Duck watched and listened carefully until finally there was a tap, then another. A minute later, the last of the ducklings had hatched, and Mother Duck smiled down at her beautiful family. The last duckling to hatch was larger and fluffier than the others. It flapped its tiny wings, and Mother Duck gave a friendly quack. The duckling looked up at her, opened its odd-shaped beak, and replied with a strange noise. "Ah." Well, no duckling had ever made a noise like that. It was very loud, very odd, and not like a meep at all. The other ducklings almost fell over in shock. From the moment of hatching, life for Honk, for that was the name given to this little bird, was a lonely one. Why? Well, as the family of ducklings all grew older, they could see that Honk was different, and I'm afraid to say that Honk's brothers and sisters thought this was a bad thing, which, by the way, it isn't. So when Mother Duck wasn't around to stop them, the other ducklings would call Honk silly names and were very mean. They made it clear that Honk just didn't fit in. Maybe you know some horrid children who do that kind of thing. Despite kind words from Mother Duck, Honk decided it would be best to be alone. It made Honk very sad, but that was just the way it was, and instead of moping, that brave little duck decided to do something about it. One autumn morning, as golden leaves filled the pathways and paddocks, Honk waddled off into the woods. There was a small burrow made of sticks and twigs by the side of a large pond, and Honk, feeling very sad, decided that this would be a good place to hide and venture into the pond to fish when no other birds were around. All through the winter, Honk was alone, missing Mother Duck, of course, but it was nice not having to suffer the cruel words of the other ducklings. The winter was long and lonely in that little hideaway, but eventually the crisp days and freezing nights gave way to warmer ones. Spring arrived with the bright golden daffodils filling the grassy banks. Cherry blossom burst from the trees in pink and white, and Honk was hopeful that spring would bring happier times. One morning, as Honk was fishing on the pond, a flock of swans descended. Marvelling at how graceful they were, Honk was very surprised to see 2 of these proud white birds making their way across the pond. "Hello," said one. Is this your home?" "Yes, I've been here for winter," replied Honk nervously. "On your own?" asked the second swan. "Oh, yes, of course," said Honk. "Who would want to be with an ugly thing like me?" The swans seemed very confused. They looked at Honk and then each other. "Ugly," said the first swan. So you think we are ugly?" No, of course not," said Honk. "You are all beautiful." The second swan then replied, "But you look just like us." Honk looked down into the water and for the first time saw the reflection of a graceful swan. "I'm a swan." The other swans laughed, but it wasn't the same cruel laughter that Honk had heard before. This was different, and it made Honk feel warm inside and really part of something. "You seem surprised," said the first swan. "I am," said Honk. "I always thought I was a funny-looking duck." "Well, I suppose compared to a duck, you are. But as a swan, you are just perfect." On hearing these words, Honk felt somehow stronger. You won't be surprised to hear that from that day on, Honk stayed in the pond with the swans and visited Mother Duck only now and then. That was where Honk belonged. Our not-so-ugly duckling had found a home at last, and life was good. Honk happily paddled, soared, fished, and honked as only swans can. So that is the tale of the ugly duckling. But let me end by saying this. Some stories start off sad, but end up happy. And that, I am afraid, is just how life is sometimes. If you ever find yourself in a place where those around you just don't seem to understand or accept you just as you are, don't worry, because it's not the end of your story. Remember that Honk was beautiful all along, but those other ducks just couldn't see it.